everybody, welcome back. My name is Benjamin Bloom, and we're going to revisit an old flame, an old crush. Hey, get so many messages from Sheffield United fans, Villa fans, and Norwich fans saying you don't come and see us anymore. So this is the first of three shows. I'm going to call it the Big Jump because when I was doing my notes, I kept writing the Big Jump. Maybe that's just me overusing the cliche, but we're going to take a look at our three most successful teams in the Championship from last year who have left us, disappeared, and gone off for a world of £100 million TV deals, £100 million players, 100 million VAR reviews. But familiar, I'm sure, to everybody on the channel is Ben from the Blades Pod. We're going to start with Sheffield United. Ben, do you have like a new dressing gown? Do you have your, I don't know, things? Do you have like silk podcasting headphones now?
Attire.
How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Slightly discombobulated from yesterday evening's game, but overall,
because it was on a Thursday, or because you lost?
All manner of things. It was we went into the twilight zone of football last night. I think, yeah, the Thursday night 7:30 kickoff, losing the game, and the manner of one of the goals as well is a slightly shell-shocked experience. But overall, I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah, the first example I think we've had of a team actually playing the VAR and going, well, I may be offside, but I'm just going to keep going and see what happens. And unfortunately, your keeper stopped, which may or may not have been the right or wrong thing to do. But I'm sure that will be much better discussed on the Blades Pod, which you've already recorded. Just give a quick plug to the podcast. I know I've plugged it loads on my channel, but just from the horse's mouth.
Of course. Yeah, it's the podcast is called Blades Pod. It's available on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. Myself and Andrew every week break down all the big talking points around Sheffield United, and yeah, there's been quite a few of them, not only last season but certainly this season as well, just in the last few weeks, to be honest. So yeah, it's called Blades Pod. Check it out there. You can follow me on Twitter at Blades Pod as well.
Brilliant. So obviously, anyone who's followed the channel will know my fixation with a brilliant Sheffield United team last year, and it's kind of nice actually because, well, my team Ipswich were completely horrifically bad. Obviously, the best team in the league then happened to be Norwich, which I couldn't enjoy for obvious reasons. So I kind of got in, and really, it's great watching it from afar. And just before we go into, this is called the Big Jump because it's about transitioning across. But let's just reminisce quickly, Ben. I just looked it up. It was 2:05. It was the 16th of March. The ball falls out of the sky in Leeds. Billy Sharp bullies Liam Cooper. I'm getting tingles even thinking about it because I'm in the away, and it was just one of the best football moments I've ever seen. And Chris Basham's going through, and I think I said this to you at the time, Ben. You've weathered this storm. It's like Sheffield United aren't going up. They can't go up. And we're at this point now before the last international break. And as he goes through, not as he scores the goal, as he goes through, I'm genuinely like, holy shit, Sheffield United are going to get promoted. He's about to score. They're going to beat Leeds. This is ridiculous. Can we just go back to just like I say, I get shivers thinking about it. Lucky enough to be in the away end with your fans then. Talk to me a bit about that moment and just take me up to the promotion and what a story that was last season.
Yeah, I think that was there was a couple of games in a short space of time there that kind of really made us think this could happen for us. About 3 or 4 days before we played Brentford at home, and I think we were 1-0 up, but we've gone down to 10 men after about 25 minutes. Our striker got sent off for a really stupid challenge, and Brentford are like the worst possible team to play against when you've got 10 men, and they were knocking it around all over the place. We ended up holding on, actually getting another goal and winning that game. So massive effort went into that one, and it felt like a huge win at the time. And then obviously to go to Leeds 3 or 4 days later, withstand a bit of a storm, and then get that immortalised moment now of Basham's arriving, the commentary that's been, it's become a bit of a meme among United fans of Basham's arriving. The player that has been with us in some dark days in League One, and he started out as a bit of a donkey for us, to be honest, and has just found a role in the team. So, yeah, for him to do that against a clearly very very good Leeds team, if you pay attention to sort of advanced metrics, they were comfortably one of the best teams in the league last season. Obviously finished third as well, and yeah, probably will feel they should have got promoted through the playoffs, but. Yeah, to win that, it felt like it's going to happen for us. And then we had a couple of setbacks along the way. There was a last minute draw with Millwall at home, which was a real sickener. It was like 95th minute, I think, when they equalised. And then Leeds dropped a few points. We won 4 games in a row, I think, and that was enough to clinch it against your beloved Ipswich as well, who very very generously didn't throw a spanner in the works in the penultimate game of the season. So yeah, it was a dream. It was we obviously got promoted from League One 2 seasons before that, but the kind of the drama and the excitement of those last couple of months was probably unlike anything I've experienced, I think.
So good, wasn't it? So good. And genuinely, as a neutral fan, I mean, obviously we had Ipswich winning 5-3 in the playoffs, and Martin Ruser going through in Wembley and making it 4-2. But that Basham goal was it's something else. Honestly, absolutely something
I,
else to
I
beat
think
them.
because he'd been so bad in that game. I mean, Wilder said afterwards, like, he was on the verge of subbing him off after about 25, 30 minutes because he'd just been awful. I mean, he was playing in midfield he's a central defender really, but he was playing in midfield to sort of give us some cover and some bite in midfield. And then, yeah, he'd missed or he'd sort of fluffed an opportunity a bit like that earlier in the game. And then, yeah, for him to just sort of fall over and slide the ball into the bottom corner. Basham, United win 1-0 at Ellen Road and Basham scores from 20 yards is not what I was expecting the final headline to be.
So good, so good. So Leeds go on, like you say, finish third. Bielsa lets Adoma score that goal. I was at that game as well, actually. Chris
Mm.
Wilder has his 10th celebration drink, and promotion is mathematically confirmed. At what point did you, as a fan, obviously, like you said, a lot happened very quickly, didn't it? Promotion, stable, promotion again. At what point did you actually start thinking, we call this the big jump, at what point did you actually start thinking about the Premier League? And because I guess there's that moment of this is amazing, this is amazing. Hang on, we might get Man City away in 8 weeks' time or something. And at what point do you
Mm.
actually start thinking about it?
So what, thinking like about the realities of being in the Premier League or
Yeah,
believing?
yeah, quite.
Um, I don't know. I guess just I think probably when the fixture list comes out and we have an absolute murderer's row of games coming up at the end of December. Actually, I think we go. I think we might have Man City at home, then Liverpool away, Man City away, and there's like West Ham and Arsenal kind of in between as well. So you look at that and it's like, well, if we get more than 0 points out of that run, that will be a decent return. But yeah, it was a slightly dramatic summer. We had the kind of ownership court case going on, so that was kind of lurking in the background. We broke our transfer record like 4 times, which is, for United to suddenly be spending £10 million on a player was just a completely alien concept. And it's hard not to think back to where we were 2 years ago, where we were having to just spend a pittance on players, to be honest. So to suddenly go like, oh, we signed Luke Freeman, oh, we signed Callum Robinson, oh, we spent 10 million on Lys Mousset and we have no idea if he's going to be good, but it might actually be that spending 10 million for United now is not such a big deal. So yeah, I think when those signings start to roll in, you're like, wow, we are actually, we are Premier League now. This is a whole different ball game. And yeah, it was a very exciting summer.
What was your view on it? Because you get this weird thing of you've got clearly a brilliant team, and we'll talk about the tactical innovations that now seem to have just been misunderstood by every single Premier League pundit there is possible to, misunderstood in every way as well. What was your view at the time on having a good team, but gambling, is it good enough to play in the Premier League? And you've got 100 million come in, but you could get rid. But we'll talk about the transfers in the next question. How did you expect them to actually play it in terms of, do we try and buy a Premier League team now? Do we stick with what we've got? How did you expect them to play it before the transfers started happening?
I'm not sure how I thought. No, actually, I think I probably did expect it to go this way. I think I think it was smart, to be honest, and a lot of what we've done under Wilder is smart. We don't have a vast scouting network. Look at Brentford just continuously like plucking these players out of European, obscurity, frankly, and they turn out to be brilliant. We don't have that set up at all. But this is why we have a largely British team, to be honest, because we only have like knowledge of a certain market, and that is largely the English league. So, when we got promoted to the Championship from League One, we basically pillaged League One for the best players essentially, and brought them in, and then we essentially took that approach in after our promotion to the Premier League. So you bring in Robinson, Freeman, McBurney. These are all players who've had a massive impact in the Championship, and I thought that was really sensible because there was an element of financial gambling in that we're spending some money, but if the worst happened and you get relegated, all those players are good in the Championship. And they're all younger than what we have as well. They're all kind of 23, 24, which is quite a big deal because a lot of our key players were in their sort of early 30s at this point. So I just thought that was really smart. And actually, I think I probably did expect us to go down that route. I didn't expect us to, you look at Aston Villa, for example, and, just signing loads of foreign players, but we just don't have that set up. We need to have that set up, to be honest, because even players from the Championship are very, very expensive, and there is all that English premium stuff as well that you have to pay generally. So I think it was as I expected, but also possibly better than I expected as well. I thought maybe we'd get one or two of those players rather than three or four of them. So yeah.
Well, let's go through the list, Ben. So it was Besic on loan, Henderson returns on loan again, obviously been there the previous season. Morrison, Jagielka makes
Mm.
I don't know whether that's a kind of background signing or an actual on-pitch thing. Verips, who's a Belgian goalie, and then, like you say, the Championship. Osborne 3.5 million, Freeman 5 million, Robinson 7 million, Muset 10 million, Ollie McBurney 17 million. Am I right in saying that before John Egan signed, was Stearman your record, or I'm trying to
No, it would
think
have
who it
been
was before?
it'd have been James Beattie going
Oh,
back
yeah,
probably
right.
7 or 8 years, but it'd been I think that was like 3.5 million, and then Egan was 4 million at the start of last season.
So did you at any point think, hang on a minute, we've already got some really good Championship players, or is there a sense of we're adding similar but younger, but maybe slightly better when the Championship players came in? And also talk a bit about these, particularly Jagielka and Morrison, very interesting signings to me.
Yeah, I mean, the first few names you mentioned there haven't really played that much, and I think they were quite squad filler type players. I mean, Verreps is, we only have one permanent goalkeeper because obviously Dean Henderson's only on loan. Jagielka has played a few games, but he was definitely brought in as cover, and obviously having come through our academy and played for us, it kind of it's a bit of a homecoming for him as well. But yeah, with the sort of the players who've played meaningful minutes, I guess. Yes, the youngness of them, as I say, early 20s rather than early 30s is a big deal. But the main thing for me is, we have in the Championship, we have quite a structured way of playing. It was very, I don't know if structured is the right word actually, but a sort of set way of playing in terms of we want to dominate possession, we want to push teams back. We will have a lot of the ball. That was, kind of what we did, and then we'll work our overloads and get men into the box, that kind of thing. We knew going into the Premier League that wasn't going to be possible. And that's kind of how it's panned out. We're, down the bottom of the league for possession per game. That was just, you're up against better players, better teams. That's going to happen. So we needed to add players that have a bit of dynamism, a bit of pace, a bit of trickery. And I think that's what we tried to do with Freeman, with Callum Robinson. McBurney's more of a sort of all-round striker, and Lisa Mousset is the one that's kind of really tipped us over the edge, I think. He obviously came from Premier League, Bournemouth rather than Championship, but he is like the gold standard of what we were trying to sign. I think someone who had something that we didn't have in the rest of the squad. And while the impact of those signings has been varied, I think we're still basically playing more or less the same team as we did last season, just with Mousset in for Sharp. They have all contributed, and also the signings for the future as well, I think, who hopefully will develop with us, as so many players have over the last few years.
And with the doomsday scenario, all the money's been spent on the Premier League balance sheet as opposed to stock it up while you can. I think sometimes that money's coming in. So let's just talk about these pundits, because I'm sure you've done this to death, but lots of hilarious comments as you guys come up from I mean, these were the more educated comments where remember when Bielsa first came to Leeds, and you get these useless pundits, Bielsa, press, madman, whatever, and it's
Yeah.
like they've been told to say overlapping centre back with utterly no understanding of any of it whatsoever. And we had even worse ones that basically seem to know that Sheffield is in Yorkshire, and
It is.
you're kind of working class, so maybe you'll run around a lot, which might make you a long ball team. That without even naming any players or anything. Is this a Sheffield thing, or is this just the Premier League bubble? Now you're in it. It might be hard for you to say, not knowing anything about the league that provides it three teams and numerous players every year.
I'm not sure. I mean, I can't lie. I was slightly taken aback by the general lack of awareness. This is the thing that myself and my podcast colleague kind of discussed. Is like, if you want to go into the season and predict that United are going to finish bottom of the league, I think that's fine. That's completely legitimate because newly promoted teams do tend to struggle, and we don't have a team of household names. Billy Sharp's 33. He was our top scorer last season. So just on the surface, you look at it and go, yeah, okay, I have to pick somebody who's going to finish bottom of the league, so I might as well pick them. But then when you drill into it more, it's like, well, hang on, they've picked this with they haven't looked at us. They haven't taken into account the signings we've made, the slightly unique way that we play that is replicable, I think, at a high level. They haven't taken into account how good our defence was last season and that defence is still together this season. I can't remember if I just mentioned Wilder or not, but they haven't taken into account we have literally the best manager in England last season, as voted for by the LMA. So yeah, it did. It didn't annoy me. I was just shocked, like really, really surprised. And then you get like the odd pundit from various sites that are like, oh, actually, United are one of the more interesting promoted teams for a while, and they have a system that might actually work in the Premier League, and this will be one to watch. So it's been extremely gratifying, to be honest. I mean, I thought we'd stay up. I didn't think we'd be have this many points on the board already, but it has been gratifying to sort of hear people kind of come around a little bit in the last few weeks as we've played out some exciting games and got some points against pretty decent sides.
Yeah, I sent a tweet out the other week. I must admit, I was playing to the crowd a little bit, but complaining about this thing whereby you beat my first sight of Wild as Sheffield United was against Ipswich in 17-18, and I was
Mm.
told before the game, look out for the centre halves. They join the attack when the ball goes down the other side, and Basham actually scored in
I
that game.
remember.
He scored a header, and we've all known about this for 2 years. And then the other thing as well, the Chelsea players, where, oh, who's this Abraham? Who's this Mount? Who's this Reece James?
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, really? Have you not watched any football over the last year? Let's
Mm.
just look at some of these games then, Ben, because as you say, I've kind of split it into three, where there's the kind of feeling out period, and then there's this brilliant run in the middle of 11 points in 6 games. First 5 games was 5 points, which probably if I'd offered you that before the season, a point per game, you'd probably say, "Oh, I'll take that up until November, December, and then then we'll get some wins on the board." But draw against Bournemouth, beat Palace, always good to get the first win. Lose at home to Leicester, but Leicester have now turned out to actually be excellent, haven't they?
Mm.
2-2 at Chelsea and a reverse against Southampton. Did you think it was going to be hard going after those 5 games? Did the big jump in standard kind of manifest itself straight away?
I think we were slightly conservative at the start of the season, and it was only, funnily enough, that Southampton game where we actually played an attacking style, if you like, or maybe not the style, but we created more chances in that game than I think probably in all the previous 4 combined. And yeah, I still don't really know how we lost that game 1-0, to be honest. That's one that does stick out a little bit, even with last night's result. So I think we were feeling our way into the league a little bit. We were still trying to find the strike partnership that works for us. John Lundstrom had suddenly come into the team, and that had shocked us all, really, because he was a total bit part player in the Championship last season. He probably only started a couple of games. So we're still feeling it out a little bit. But that Southampton one was a game that made me think, like, we there's something bigger for us here. We can go and outplay these teams and create loads of chances. But at the same time, to beat Palace was impressive. Bournemouth is a good result, particularly the first game of the season. Come back from 2-0 down at Chelsea as well. That was a real one that made you think we have got something about us this season. So, yeah, I definitely would have taken 5 points from those first 5 games. It was just that there was a bit of a debate among United fans after the Southampton game of like, can we just take our foot off the pedal a little bit? Because obviously last season we had Mark Duffy playing as a number 10, and we've gone away from that this season and gone with a sort of flatter midfield 3. So there was a debate about, can we keep that defensive solidity that gives us, but be more attacking as well? And I think the next few games kind of showed the model that's been successful for us for the rest of the season up to this point.
Interesting. So yeah, talk me through this run. 6 games, 1 defeat, and that was Liverpool, who are absurdly good, aren't they? 3 wins, 11 points, and again, you mentioned the defence as well. That didn't actually, with all the crazy attacking last season, people didn't realise that this defence wasn't conceding any goals at all, was it?
Mm.
So it was a 2-0 win at Everton, 1-0 at home to Liverpool, 0-0 at Watford, so clean sheets everywhere. 1-0 at home to Arsenal, which was the kind of signature. Here we are. We've taken down one of the giants now.
Mm.
1-1 at West Ham, and then 3-0 at home to Burnley. And I think Burnley is significant because Burnley is the team that all Championship, kind of yo-yo clubs or ones that want to establish themselves look at, isn't it? So,
Mm.
what changed in the run? Was it tactical, or was it just the run of games, the opponents, or feeling your way in? What do you think?
So we actually got absolutely hammered by Everton in that game that we won 2-0. We were really, I was at that. I have no idea how we won it. We were really, really poor in that game. The main thing, honestly, is the Mousse McGoldrick partnership, which started for the first time against Arsenal. And it's chalk and cheese in terms of how our team works when those two play and when they don't. Mousse's just been a hell of a find, but McGoldrick, I mean, he's still not scored. I think he's like statistically the worst finisher in the Premier League at the moment. He has missed a lot of chances, but he's so important to us. Like, his ability to drop into midfield and just pull defenses all over the place. That's the big deal. That's the big thing, to be honest. So yeah, that started for the first time against Arsenal. It came together off the substitute bench at West Ham, started against Burnley, and we were 3-0 up at half time against Burnley, just absolutely blitzed them. We probably should have won that 5 or 6-0. We missed some really good chances in the second half. So it wasn't even a case of us just stopping playing at half time. We still kept going. So yeah, that's the main thing, I think, is that understanding. McGoldrick missed about 3 or 4 games just at the start of that spell, I think, with injury. So getting him back, getting Mousse fit enough to start, and their partnership just seems to be instantaneous and really, really effective. So yeah, I think that's the main thing, to be honest.
Past 4 games, so it's a draw at Spurs, the crazy 3-3 against Man U, draw at Wolves, who are established themselves in a slightly different way to Burnley, let's just say. And this game last night, which looks a bit of an outlier actually. You got Steve Bruce. So 3 points in the last 4. Blades 9th. 19 points from 15, so 1.26 per game. Projects out at 48. Is that total in any way likely? And has the number that you thought of, which may have been more like 38 rather than 48 at the start of the season, have you adjusted that, or are you still expecting some kind of regression to the mean?
No, I do think we will get sort of 42, 43 points, somewhere around that. I mean, there's, you're talking the difference of just a win or 2 there, aren't you, to get up to 48. The funny thing is, and I say this while trying to remove my metaphorical red and white spectacles, we should probably have more points than we do. I mean, you look at that Spurs game, there was the bizarre disallowed goal for McGoldrick, as it happens. The Man U game obviously blew a 2-goal lead where they were terrible for 72 minutes basically, and then just turned it on for 7 minutes. And then last night was a bit of a freakish one, to be honest. So I do feel like we should have some more points. And yeah, I'm kind of encouraged. It's frustrating to sort of blow a lead in some of these games. Wolves was another one where we took the lead early and then couldn't hang on. But I am also encouraged by how well we've played in them as well. And yeah, as you say, if you just get a point a game from here on, will 99.9% likely be safety, and that's very much what my goal is for this season. So yeah, I think we're in good shape. I think we'll, any United fans getting excited about a possible European tour. We're very, very much out. It's just off their rockers, to be honest. This is just not going to happen. But yeah, I think we'll be sort of that 12th, 15th kind of range at the end of the season.
I've got some general ones to finish, but you've just pricked up my interest because obviously I was one of the guys that would watch McGoldrick at Ipswich in 2014 and go, if he just had some pace, he could play in the Premier League, that guy.
Mm.
But I don't think he's ever going to make it. And Lundstrom as well. Is this purely tactical with the flatter midfield? Can you just talk about those two players? Because I thought, okay, yeah, Henderson, if they get him, fine. Stevens was brilliant, wasn't he? O'Connell was brilliant. Egan was already brilliant. Norwood was brilliant. Basham was Basham, if that's not an unkind thing to
No, no,
say.
I think that's very fair.
Fleck was brilliant. McGoldrick and Lundstrom, they're the ones. Can you just talk a little bit about those two? I know you've already mentioned McGoldrick.
Yeah, I mean, I think they dovetail quite well into the same point, really. I mean, yeah, as I say, we last season we had two strikers and a number 10 behind them, and then two deeper midfielders. This season, it's still the two strikers, and it's a flatter three. And yeah, Lundstrom, he has all the tools. We've kind
I
of
thought he
always
was going
felt.
to be sold, Ben.
I thought he was as well. I was no word of a lie. I was really disappointed he was in the team at the start of the season. I thought genuinely, I thought that's a step backwards because also we played this flat three a few times last season and it wasn't effective at all. It was very, pedestrian. We lacked that player drifting, in behind the strikers. But it works perfectly in the Premier League because of us having less possession, of having to break quickly, of having to press and win the ball. And Lundstrom's a great athlete. He's a very good footballer, good passing range, but smart timing his runs. He's got 3 goals already, and he really should have more. There's been some, I wouldn't even say misses, to be honest. I mean, he's hit the post. He's had chances saved by De Gea and other goalkeepers as well. He just knows when to get in the box and when to track back. And of course, last night was the first time we've come up against a team that's just gone 2 banks of 5, basically, at the back. And he had a really ineffective game because there was no space. There was no reason for him to press because Newcastle never had the ball, so there was nobody to win it off. There was no space for him to drive into. There was no point making any late runs because there's just no space in behind. So he's been perfectly suited to our slightly adjusted system this season, and it's very nice to see. I mean, he's still pretty young. He's only 25, so he's got scope to keep improving. So there's that added solidity there. But that's what's made McGoldrick even more important because he sort of functions as a de facto number 10 now, where he is playing as a forward, but half the time you see him on the halfway line, you see him dropping into space, dribbling away from people. I mean, the goal that we did score against Spurs that counted, I mean, that was just classic McGoldrick. He gets the ball about 40 yards out, and he plays a 1-2, then he gets it back, and he suddenly realises I've got a bit of space here. If I just drop my shoulder and just go past this defender, I open up the whole pitch, which he did. He plays it out wide, and we end up scoring. So yeah, he's been able to kind of play this hybrid role for us that's allowed us to have an extra man in midfield out of possession and still keep 2 men up top as well to kind of chase down the opposition centre backs and midfielders. So yeah, it's all credit to the manager and Alan Mill, the assistant, to be honest. For I don't believe we signed John Lundstrom thinking 2 years ago, like, right, when we're in the Premier League, this
Extra
guy's going to be really effective.
yeah.
Yeah. But they obviously identify. I mean, Lundstrom played almost every pre-season friendly, which again was a bit like, why is he playing every game? I don't really understand. But obviously they identified like this is going to be the way for us to
And
adjust
Duffy,
next
of
season.
course, went out to Stoke and they had no interest in bringing Dell back. So this maybe
Yeah.
another wilder master plan. It was all right. We're up now. Change the system.
Yeah, no, it's he constantly does things that has us kind of we shouldn't be doing it anymore, but we still scratch our heads at time and go like, what is this all about? Why have we done this? And then you actually give it a few weeks, you're like, oh, it turns out he knows exactly what he's doing, and he's really really clever. And we're all idiots, but I think I've said this a few times. I'm more than happy to be made look stupid by Chris Wilder because it means that he's doing things very very right indeed.
You would not be the only one, right? And so I've got some general ones, Ben. So obviously we have a Championship subscriber base here. So you're now talking to the Leeds fans and the West Brom fans and the Fulham fans and the Forest fans and the Bristol City fans and the Preston fans and whoever might probably end up being Cardiff by the end of the season. But can you put into words for these fans of these teams how big is the jump in standard?
Do you know, it's not as big as maybe I thought it was. Either that or we're just really good. Like genuinely, I think we're able to compete with these. I've been surprised by how much we've been able to compete with them, and how there's been very few games where we've been like backs to the wall, properly hanging on. I mean, I genuinely think it's only that Everton game. I mean, even against Liverpool, we missed some chances, and it took Henderson dropping an absolute clanger for them to score. So I think if you've got a good base, if you know what I mean, I contrast it with Cardiff, who've still got a lot of points in the Premier League, but when they got promoted from the Championship, I thought they were playing a percentage game, and the percentages come down a bit when you go up against more talented players. But we've kind of gone up with a slightly unique way of playing, a core of players that have kept together and all know their roles and are able to kind of rotate into different positions. So yeah, I've been surprised. I'm not saying we've smashed all these teams, but I would say we've been in every single game this season. I mean, even last night, really, if we take one of our chances in the first half, it's a completely different game. So even teams like that are down at the bottom, like Norwich, for example, they've made a good fist of it. They've got wins against decent teams like Man City, for example. So yeah, I think I don't know. I'm slightly surprised, really. I thought it would be much more difficult than it has been, and maybe it will become more difficult, as I say. But yeah, it's kind of nice going into these games being the underdog for once, which we haven't had for a very long time. I would say probably the last 10 years of being a United fan, the expectation every season is get promoted. And that's, every time you lose a game, it's like, well, this is a disaster. Promotion's now another step away. Whereas this season, we go into games not expecting to win, probably expecting to lose, to be honest. And then anything else is a bonus. And so you see us play against teams like Man United, against Spurs, and think like, well, we actually do belong here. We are good enough to play up against these teams. So yeah, it's been a less big jump than I expected, to be honest.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that. It's the fourth year of a project, isn't it? That this
Mm,
is even though one of the years was in League One, you take for example a team like West Brom who could well go up, but they're 1 year into a project,
yeah.
whereas things like pattern of play, which probably mean a lot more in the Premier League maybe than no, that's not necessarily fair to say in the Championship, but you take my point that that build up and that drilling over those years. Um, should the promoted teams should they splash and build a new Premier League team, or take the risk and stick with what they've got, or is that too general a question to throw out for um, lots of different
I,
teams that go up?
I, I mean, I know what I would rather do, and that is what we have done, and not hamstring ourselves. And it's kind of what Norwich are doing. They obviously got themselves in a bit of a mess 3 or 4 years ago when they got promoted and then got relegated. I would rather be in a sustainable position, even if it means relegation, to be honest. This is why I'm so happy that we signed young, proven Championship players that, yeah, as I say, can develop with us, can be impactful next season in theory if we end up back in the Championship. So, yeah, I don't. I would really hate for my team to just essentially hamstring itself for the future and like risk running into some of the financial mess that, like, I mean, for example, our neighbours are in at the moment, Sheffield Wednesday, and yeah, I want to know that everything's sustainable with United, even if you're sacrificing maybe a bit of short-term success for that. So I don't know if it's the right way or the wrong way. I think you'll probably find more examples of spending a lot of money being the wrong way. Obviously, Fulham was a more recent one, but yeah, I'd much rather go down the sustainable route, I think.
And sustainable includes the dugout as well. It's not
Mm.
just the balance sheet and the players, is it? Is there anything you miss about the Championship, Ben?
The amount of games is a big thing. It's a little better now, but I mean, I think we played 3 games in October and 3 games in November. It's like, where's my football? Like, what's going on? We
Try
multiple
following a
times.
League One team in the bloody leasing.com trophy, Ben, for God's sake. Ipswich
Well,
already
I
played
was.
about 40 games.
I mean, I was doing 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, so I mean, multiple times this season we've gone like 21, 22 days between home games. And that's a very, very long time. Just the combination of, you'll have one game that's on a Saturday lunchtime, and then your next home game's on a Monday night after an international break and an away game. So yeah, that's a big deal. I'm not enjoying VAR at all. I was very, I think, VAR agnostic going into the season. So open mind. I thought it would be a good thing, but it's and not just because a lot of these things are kind of gone against us, but it does affect the enjoyment of the match. And yeah, it's not good. I just ranted about it for like 40 minutes on the podcast we just recorded, so I'm kind of spent on VAR. But it's not great, to be honest. I miss knowing that a goal is a goal, and you can celebrate, or even if you've conceded it, you can move on and just play the game normally. I mean, going 2-0 down in the manner we did last night, I think if there was no decision made and it was just a standard goal for Newcastle, there's 20 minutes left. I fancy we'd have picked ourselves up and gone again, but it just sucked the life out of everybody, the circumstances around it. So I'm not enjoying that. I'm missing, yeah, knowing the goal is a goal, and the amount of games as well. 8 less games, it's a lot.
Absolutely. Looking at the other two, your contemporaries, Norwich and Villa. Norwich are down the bottom. Where are Villa? Are they kind of three quarters
They're
of the way
not
down?
too bad. Yeah, there are not that many points behind
Um,
us, to be honest. It's a big
how,
mishmash.
how do you think those two have dealt with the big jump? Which one will finish highest out of the three of you?
I
And
think I'd have to pick us at this stage. At the start of the season, I definitely would have. In fact, I definitely did pick Villa. Um, Villa are a curious one because they obviously had to spend money because there was so much squad turnover with players' contracts running out,
all
and
the best players were
obviously
on loan, weren't they?
that as well. Yeah, so I like what they've done. They spent to bring Mings back, who's a known quantity, obviously. Their midfield three is excellent. Hurahan, McGinn, and Grealish. Grealish is fantastic. I still have no idea what he was doing in the Championship for a couple of years, to be honest. So I think they'll be fine. I'd have to say we'll finish above them just on the basis of what I've seen, I guess, in these first 15 or 16 games or so. But be pretty close, a couple of points either way. Norwich, I mean, they've gone for, as I said, they've not invested because they don't want to completely mess themselves up financially. They've instead very justifiably kind of doubled down on the young players that they've got and kind of given out new contracts. That's a very smart way to run a business, run a football club as a business, I suppose. But I guess a little bit, the way their season's gone is kind of how we sort of thought it might do, to be honest. Of slightly shaky at the back, being quite attacking in games and leaving themselves open and vulnerable. So yeah, I'm not too surprised to see them down near the bottom of the league. I mean, it may be an approach that gets them enough wins to stay up at the end of the season, but yeah, I did feel going into the season we had the best defence, and that's kind of how it's proved, and that gives us a baseline from which if you keep teams to zeros and ones, then we'll be able to score enough goals to win enough games to stay up.
Interesting. I will be at my first Premier League game in about 1,000 years on Sunday. I will be at Norwich
Ah,
versus
very nice.
Sheffield United, first against second from last year. It was 2-2, and we had the famous Mr. Socko, Billy
Oh
Sharp
yeah,
goal celebration. Seems an
that
eternity. Really,
seems like 100 years ago.
I
Really long
know
time.
this is before Basham arrived and
It's,
3-3 at Villa and all of
yeah.
the all of the other stuff that went on. And just to finish off, bit of fun. Can you give us a grade? Give us a letter grade for how we'll get one off each of Norwich and Villa as well. How have Sheffield United coped with the big jump?
I think it's an A minus because we've been brilliant, frankly. I really, really have enjoyed watching us. We've taken points off a lot of big teams. The minus would just be we should probably have more points. We should have beaten Man. It sounds ridiculous, but we were all disappointed that we'd drawn at home with Man United and that we'd gone to Spurs and not won. We'd only drawn. And I think if you're hypercritical, you look at our results and be like, "Oh, I should have won that one. You should have won that one. You should have won that one." But overall, you can't help but be absolutely over the moon with how the start of the season's gone if you're a United fan.
Brilliant. I have a feeling, Ben, the Sheffield United show is going to be very upbeat. The Villa one's going to be in the middle, and the Norwich one's going to be very downbeat. But we'll we'll see as they go on. But I do have intention to speak to friends at Norwich and at Villa, and I will be seeing Sheffield United for the first time since they were promoted this Sunday. Ben, thank you so much. Keep up the great work. Genuinely, because I'm not one of those football fans. I watched a bit of the Arsenal game on my iPad, and I think there's a lot of Championship fans have a lot of goodwill to Sheffield United. The way they did it with the innovation, with no parachute money, with
Mm.
in this kind of don't want to say honest workaday way because it was more innovative than that. But I think, and I don't know if you guys feel it as Sheffield United, I think there's quite a lot of goodwill from other fans towards Sheffield United. So long may it continue, my friend. Give one more plug to the podcast, and I will let you go about your day.
Thank you. Yeah, the podcast is Blades Pod. It is available everywhere you care to get your podcasts. And you can follow me on Twitter at BladesPod.
Outstanding. Ben, thank you so much for coming on. And we will be back, no doubt. I won't get Norwich or Villa done before Sunday, but hey, you never know, it might happen. So follow me on Twitter at Benjamin Bloom, etc. Subscribe, ring the bell, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Over and out.